Hi guys, today I'm going to teach you how to wash a ferret. I've had a few requests on the Ferret-World Facebook page for it, so that's what we're doing. I can hear my ferrets already screaming because they're not that fond of them, but we're going to teach people how to do it properly. The most important thing to remember when washing your ferret is to make sure that you don't do it too often. If you wash a ferret too often, what happens is the ferret's oils get stripped down out of the fur and the skin, and the oil glands then go into overdrive and try to make up for what is lacking in the skin and the fur and overproduce oils, which actually makes the ferret smell a lot more in the long run. It's recommended to only wash a ferret max once a month, because otherwise if you wash a ferret too often, their skin can, not only will they smell, but their skin can also go dry and flaky, and the fur can turn coarse and dull. So that's not really something that we want for our ferrets, especially if they're itching non-stop trying to get rid of the itch from their dry skin. So when you start filling up the water, just make sure that the water is nice and warm. A ferret's body temperature is actually a bit higher than a human's temperature, so it means that what might seem warm to you might actually seem a bit cold for a ferret. And that's where people complain that ferrets try to scramble up their arms and they leave so many scratch marks. Normally it's because the ferret is actually cold and wants to get out of the water. So if you make sure that the water is nice and warm for the ferret, then you'll find that it'll be a much more pleasant experience, not only for the ferret, but also for you. You want the water to be quite nice and warm, fairly kind of on the warmer side of lukewarm. You don't want to make the water too deep. You want to make sure that the ferret can still touch the bottom of the bath, just so that it can feel nice and safe and secure. When you go to bath your ferret, make sure that you don't throw the ferret straight in the bath. Let their body get used to the change in temperature, and just so that they don't go into too much of a shock once they're dunked into water. He's going to have a bath now. No. So just nice and slowly. I know. It's not that bad. So we're just slowly submerging her. She can touch the very bottom. Still wants to scramble up onto my hand a little bit, but because the water is quite nice and warm, it's not actually that much of a shock to her. There we go. That's not that bad. Hey? Okay, so she's just swum across to the area where she feels most secure, and that's normally the shallow part. If you see a ferret swimming, then the water might be a little bit too deep. Just make sure that you let some out, just so that he or she can feel nice and secure while in the bath. That's a bit scary, isn't it? In order for your ferret to start liking the bath as much as they can get some Nutrigel or a treat. So I just put some Nutrigel on my hand, and I'm just going to reward her for being such a good girl. So just cup your hand and pour some water over her. Just watch out not to get too much of it over her face. When you're doing the face, just your hand is wet enough. You don't actually need to pour any water over. It's okay, darling. Your ears are dirty. Look at that. Lucky. If your ferret does tend to misbehave and not let you do what you need to do in order to get them clean, then you can actually scruff them, just so that they relax. But keep in mind that a scruffed wet ferret actually weighs more than one that is dry, and so make sure to always support their backs. Just place your hand under the bum and make sure that you can support them. I also like to lie them down on my arm because at least I know that they'll be supported, and just you can do their ears and all the harder to reach places like that. Just make sure they're not out of the water too long because they'll start to shiver. Use a ferret-friendly shampoo, one that is specially designed for ferrets, or one that is very sensitive, preferably organic so it doesn't contain any chemicals and is only plant derived, or like a baby shampoo or something like that. If you can find a kitten shampoo, that can also be okay, but do not use dog shampoos, only because they do contain a chemical which is harmless to dogs, but ferrets do get quite affected to it. So just keep in mind that ferrets are very sensitive to chemicals, so the more natural the better. And just start with their back. I know, it's horrible, isn't it? Mummy's being horrible. Just avoid their heads for now, but make sure that you do their tail really well, only because ferrets do tend to get black heads on their tails. So make sure that you do scrub the tail very well. If your ferret does have black heads on its tail, then I would recommend washing only the tail every second day and just scrubbing those black heads, all that gunk out of the tail out. Make sure that you don't get any soap in the ferret's eyes, because that can be quite painful. And you don't really want to let them eat it either, so at this point in time your ferret will start to resemble a drowned rat. It's a good time to laugh at him. When it's time to rinse, you can just pour some nice warm water, grab your ferret and just slowly put them under the stream of water. I try to avoid dunking the ferret's head because one, it scares them, and two, you don't want your ferret to be drowned. Now is the time where you pull out your towel, which you would have prepared earlier. You can put it in the bath so that they can towel dry themselves. And don't be afraid to also give them a hand. Make sure that your ferret does dry out very quickly. Also, I would recommend that you close all the windows and doors so that you don't bath them in an area where there is a draft. Only because, for the same reason, they can catch a bit of a chill, which can lead to further sickness later on. We hardly ever wash our ferrets, only if they get really dirty for some reason or get fleas when they've been out playing with other ferrets. But there really is no reason to wash a ferret too often. If your ferret smells, then it's probably not the ferret itself. It might be the blankets that it's sleeping in, so those need to be washed on a weekly or fortnightly basis, and that will reduce the smell of your ferret considerably. Once you're done, you can let your ferret have a run around, but just be aware that they will try to literally find the most dirtiest spots in the house. I'm sorry, do you forgive me, little puffball? Yes? I think it shall all be forgiven. Till next time, right? Luckily we don't do bars that often in our household.